I felt very self-loathing in high school, and my way, I didn't feel cool, like I was never a cool kid, and my way of coping with that and my way of was creating my own individuality. And I think that's really important, especially as a woman in the music industry or in entertainment, is to understand the current state of affairs and how it's affecting women who are pursuing a legitimate career in music and entertainment. Yasmine and I have been indie for almost a year now, and it's been so incredibly liberating, but also we recognize that if we want to take our visuals to the next level, because we have these big dreams of what we want to do.
Yeah. Hi, this is Lauren Engel of Sidewalk Talk. I'm here with Jahan.
Hi, you pronounced my name right.
Yes,
Thank
I
you.
looked it up. Of Krewella, of course.
1/2.
Yeah.
I'm having separation anxiety. You didn't want us both together.
First, I have to show you this picture.
So we met?
Yes.
At one point. What?
This is 2013 in Hong Kong. I'm gonna put this picture for you guys,
Holy
and I literally
shit.
look like a Simpson.
This was at Play.
Yes.
Nightclub.
Oh my God, you have such good memories. You play so much.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So you were living there at the time?
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
I think you're probably one of the first like EDM acts that I saw. Because no one
wow,
really came out there.
in Hong Kong?
Yeah.
That club had like chicken fingers and like hot wings in the back, which was pretty cool.
That's good memory.
Yeah, I do remember that because it's like, it's always funny when you're in a club and you're eating food because it seems like an unsanitary environment sometimes.
Oh, yeah, it's true.
'Cause, you know, the bodily fluids and juices that are just swimming around in the club, you know. Okay, I'm gonna be an asshole and put my sunglasses
Yeah,
on.
you
It's
should.
too funny. Even though I look like a dick.
So were you born in Windy City or was it Houston initially?
No, I was born in Texas. Okay, you're getting a repeat of the conversation with Yasmine, right?
Yeah, but you're like a few years
but
apart.
a slightly
so...
different perspective.
Yeah.
I have 2 years on her. Yes, so we were born in Houston. Yasmine probably doesn't remember at all because she was 2 when we moved. So she was like a cute little turd toddler. And then we road tripped with our family up to Northbrook, which is a suburb of Chicago. And that's pretty much where I grew up. I think we spent, I would say most of my young teenage or childhood, teenage years, adolescent years, young adult life there. And then eventually when Yasmine and I realized we had to step out of the nest and be responsible adults, we moved out with our former member Chris, and we all lived in a loft in Chicago.
Yeah.
And that was a creative space for us where we partied and made music and didn't sleep and had weird hours, but I would say that was the place where we kind of went into where we really started like just completely living Krewella and pursuing our artistry full time.
What are your parents' personalities like?
Oh, I like
were
that
you more
question.
Similar to?
I would say as I'm getting older, okay, so I'll answer your first question. I think my dad has, as he's aged very gracefully, and he's become a wise sage. He's
kind of a feminist or something, right?
Did Yasmine tell you that?
I think I read in a previous interview.
Yes, self-proclaimed feminist, which is amazing because he is from Pakistan and he raised us Muslim with my mom. And I feel like there's this perception in the West that Muslims, that most Muslims and modern Muslims growing up in the West, are very, let's say, like ancient and barbaric with their views towards women. And my dad is a perfect example of a man who can stay in touch with his traditional values, but also modify and adapt to the world around him, coming to the West when he was 18. And that's been like a huge part of me getting closer to him, is not hiding anything from him, because I feel like I hid a lot as a teenager. I don't know if you feel that. That's something I find with a lot of people with Asian parents too.
Yeah.
So I found that like as I started opening up to him and just being more straightforward and not having to hide this double life that I'm living.
Yeah, what kind of clicked to you that you were able to be more open with him?
I think it was when Yasmine and I moved out and moved to Los Angeles, because that's when I realized I was really taking my family and parents for granted. When you're separated by thousands of miles, it just kind of wakes you up. And going through such an extreme life change like that is incredibly profound, and that it just makes you realize how precious life is, and that's when you start really seeing that parents are aging, and mortality is a real thing that we have to think about. And I don't want to waste my time with him living in the past or hiding and not being able to be open with him. I want to be able to seek advice from him, because there's so much beautiful ancient Asian wisdom, as you know, that comes from, whether you're Chinese or Japanese, but in Pakistan, there's beautiful Islamic poetry and sayings, and I'm learning all these life lessons from him now simply because I'm more open with him. Anyway, now let me move on to my mom. So our mom is European, born in New Haven, Connecticut. And I think that just her presence of being a freelance artist and a successful, independent, self-sufficient businesswoman, and she had created and built out a home office for herself. So experiencing that at home and growing up with that, I think subconsciously I internalized that, and I was exposed to a woman who's hardworking, who takes care of 3 girls, cooks for her family, cleans the house, works 12, 14 hours a day, even weekends, and takes her girls shopping on the weekends, get clothes, takes me to dermatologist appointments when I'm crying about my acne, when I'm hormonal, whatever it is. So she really, I've given her this term before, but she took on a super mom role. So I think that was really, in a way, all 3 of us, when I say 3 of us, Yasmine and I have an older sister too.
Yeah, what does she do?
She is an illustrator and graphic designer, and she works at Riot Media. Oh. She's a boss. So she also moved out to Los Angeles because we missed her a lot, and she kind of wanted to pursue her dreams. So yeah, we grew up with a very strong female presence. Look at these succulents. Those are so pretty.
They
beautiful.
Are. How do you describe yourself back then growing up in high school?
Insecure, lost, desperate for attention.
Yeah.
So I attribute that to, maybe it's the weird middle child theory, I don't know, who knows. But I also think that's because I felt very self-loathing in high school. And my way, I didn't feel cool, I was never a cool kid. And my way of coping with that, and my way of was creating my own individuality. And that's when MySpace was coming about. So I really, I sought out the internet as a place for me to create my own identity. So it's kind of hey, I don't feel cool in the real world. I don't know where I belong. I'm not part of any sort of community. And I think also that might be, maybe you relate to this, but growing up as a mixed kid is not fully identifying with your Hong Kong side, and not fully identifying with your Western side either. So I think that in turn made me a more creative person, is because I kind of had to create this fusion of both of my backgrounds. I even see it today in our music style and fashion, with I'm wearing a Turkish necklace right now, and and I love piecing together Pakistani or Indian pieces, or pieces from the Middle East with more Western sporty clothing. So, and I feel that kind of represents my background.
How did you become more confident?
I still have my struggles with confidence. There's some, it's different, it's some days you wake up and you're fuck yeah, I feel like Superwoman. And then some days you wake up and you're just I don't know what my purpose is. I still have those days, and I think fans will probably be so disappointed to hear this, because they probably have this perception that Yasmine and I are really, really sure of ourselves all the time, and we know exactly what we're doing. And that's the perception that a lot of people, artists or celebrities, people in entertainment, exude online. But I have my days where I'm just I feel what I want in this life, and my intention is not being, I can't figure out how to execute it fully, whether it's being, creating more of a community for mixed kids, or Pakistanis and Indians, or women in music, women in entertainment, women in the tech world. And I feel like I have this power to do it, but sometimes I get really antsy and I'm like, why am I not able to like fully come into myself right now? But then I have to I snap out of it and I realize, you know, I'm still in my 20s. I have the rest of my life to figure this out. Like, we shouldn't put this pressure on ourselves and then in turn become more self-loathing and ashamed that we're not like fully pursuing this path that we feel like we're set out to do.
And then were you, after high school, were you thinking about college, or what was your path before Krewella?
I was kind of on this, like, I had multiple paths going on when we first started pursuing Krewella. I was in college. I was at University of Illinois at Chicago, and I was also a server at a lounge. So I used to love clubs back then. Like, before we were playing, I was just getting drunk and going to clubs all the time. So then working in that environment as a server also, it was weird because I sometimes will play at these clubs and I'll be like, I remember what it's like to be the girl in the booth. Oh, yeah. But then also the girl serving. So now I feel like I've lived 3 lives where I'm like, I was the server pouring and popping champagne for rich people, and then I was the girl who couldn't afford drinks at the bar and would go in with my girls and we would just linger around for free drinks. And now it's crazy to be in a position, a very powerful position too. It's like we're the ones who are, in a sense, like hosting the party. Yeah. Just live in clubs.
What were you studying while you were at college?
I was studying communication, so I was taking a lot of classes on popular culture and theory of mass media. It was a really, really interesting time because that was when you saw the rise of social media.
Right. That's perfect timing.
Yeah, it was. Well, now it would be even more interesting because it's just exploded. But yeah, I was studying like theories of how media and internet usage and consuming social media is affecting our youth mentally, their cognitive behavioral skills. By the way, I'm talking like I know what I'm talking about, but I don't remember any of this. But I think it did, I think it was meant to, even though it was a loss of money because I didn't graduate, I think it was meant to be that I went to college because I think it, in a sense, kind of made, it shaped the way I thought about different things and made me very critical and look at things critically. And I think that's really important, especially as a woman in the music industry or in entertainment, is to understand the current state of affairs and how it's affecting women who are pursuing a legitimate career in music and entertainment, in the tech world, in music video directing or production, whatever it is.
You wrote a letter to your dad, right? That you wanted to like drop out and pursue this full time.
We did.
You still have that letter, actually?
Yes.
Nice.
Somewhere in my like old Yahoo email that's like spammy now.
Oh, you emailed him?
I think it was.
For some reason, I thought it was like written out.
I think it was. I feel like if I wrote it by hand, it would have been more thoughtful. Like I try to handwrite letters as much as I can now. I'm an old school like that. And I actually really have to say, when our fans do that, it like warms my heart. When I open, there's something about like opening an envelope and seeing someone's handwriting. You can like feel all the emotion. And so it's in one of my really sketchy, spammy, old Yahoo emails that I'll have to find that somewhere.
Do you remember what it says?
I think it was something. Did you ask Yasmine? She might know. She has a better memory. I tend to like, honestly, sometimes I black out certain parts of my life, or I just kind of like push it aside and I don't remember exactly. But I think I know that the topic of insurance was in this, health insurance.
Because he cared a lot about that.
He did. He's up there, you know, my parents of course cared about our well-being. They have 3 kids. And it was, at the time, I think you either had to have like a full-time, or work full-time at like a corporation that provides health insurance, or you had to be a full-time student. And it was kind of unfortunate because I feel like that strips away people's motive or motivation to pursue artistic endeavors, because they're like, oh, I can't get health insurance, so I can't pursue this path of being an artist. So that's what was kind of flawed about the system at the time.
And then how long after that were you like living in a loft, right? Just you guys.
Yeah, I think we're there. Oh my God, like I said, I feel like I blacked out a bunch of my life. I just erased it. Well, I was technically blacked out for a lot of it. I think it was about a year. Then Yasmine and I moved to our own place. And then we realized we have to be in the hub of artists, the hub of dreamers. My dad used to work at UPS.
Oh, shout out.
And it's funny, in Chicago, he knew everyone. We'd be like, it would be a weekend, and we'd be like walking around or driving. Oh my, all these trucks.
Oh, yeah.
And then we'd be walking around somewhere, and he'd be like, hey, Stanley, hey, hey, Bob. And my dad is very, like, he will make friends with everyone. We would go into, like, Whole Foods in Chicago, and to this day, we've been gone for 3 years.
Yeah.
And he'll go up to the guy who bags, the produce. So it's cool because they're often these people who are invisible and not talked to. Mm-hmm. And my dad always, was engaging with them.
I love that. Did your dad actually mind you like partying or drinking a lot? Because they're pretty religious, right? Or only like half religious?
No, I think he was worried. I mean, and I would be too, because as young women you're vulnerable. And I think I remember what he would bring out. It's weird because like we had this kind of weird we had these unspoken rules where he didn't like really verbalize what the rules were. You kind of just knew. So there was that kind of a little bit of discomfort there. But when we first, it was all on Facebook, so of course, and my dad was great at stalking, I'm sure.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure he knew. And I think he was just worried about us being in danger. And now I think he really, really trusts us because Yasmine and he knows that we care about our health so much. Mm-hmm. But when we do want to celebrate or party on the road, he knows that we're looking out for each other, and that's just something you have to do.
That's so good that you
with
guys
your friends.
Have each other.
Yeah. Regardless of whether you are boys or girl, or man or woman, I just have to say, like, especially for women, we've heard of so much shit happening at festivals, backstage at clubs. Like, you really need to surround yourself with company, like people who aren't just going to leave you on a sidewalk in Scottsdale when you're blacked out and throwing up on yourself, because we've seen shit like that.
Yeah. And then kind of early on, you already signed with like Columbia. Do you think that was like too fast?
Like as in like, hey, it's like we just started dating and then we just moved in like 6 months later kind of thing?
For the Columbia records?
Yeah.
Or as in like you haven't fully figured out your branding and who you want to be?
Well, that's an interesting question. Okay, so the really cliche spiritual side of me is like, it's all meant to happen. Like, I feel like we signed at the right time because we grew. I like how we grew, and then I like where we are at. I love where we're at now. I love how we've really come into our own and developed personally, and I understand myself more as an artist and what I want. I have more clarity of vision, and I don't think that would have happened if we waited and stayed in that situation that we were in as a trio at the time. So I think we kind of had to experience the machine for a little and see how it operates and see how it affects us creatively, so that now if there's ever a moment where the machine wants to lure us back in, like we know our grounds and we know how to make something on our terms.
Yeah.
So that we maintain our free-flowing state of mind to create. Because I think that's how you create the best music.
What did you learn about signing with them that are able to bring to your own like record label that you have now?
Well, for the most part, I think it's like the amount of money that the machine has. It like you can't even compare it. So it's like at a certain point, it's like if you believe in your art so much and you want it to be exposed and you want incredible pieces of visual art. When I say that, I'm like whether it's like a 50 to 100K music video, whatever it is, and you need that capital, then you do need to rely on the suits. Yasmine and I have been indie for almost a year now, and it's been so incredibly liberating, but also we recognize that if we want to take our visuals to the next level, because we have these big dreams of what we want to do, we might need to create some sort of alliance with I'm still calling it the machine, but that's what it is. but I know that there are humans in the machine because we've met some label execs and some people who are a little more forward thinking, who aren't just thinking like, hey, we just need that one song for radio. And they're thinking about, or they really care about an artist who has almost like a cult following, or an artist who's so in tune with their fans, an artist who's creating from like a weirder place rather than the expected. So I have faith. Trying to be more optimistic.
The ideas behind the charity focuses you have, like with the bracelets or the cleanups.
So Dance for Paralysis was started by Tom, who is now our friend, but at the time we didn't know him. And he came to us telling us his story about how he was pursuing, and he actually had a professional career in playing hockey. And he had accidents that affected his physical ability to play and completely transformed his dream in life to... It's kind of like, in a sense, he lost his identity. It's like if something happened to me where I couldn't hear or speak or sing anymore, I would have to completely reorganize my thoughts and dreams and think about a different path in life. So, and that can cause, I can imagine, like so much chaos in someone's mind to kind of just think like, hey, I identified with this role for the past 10 years. And now I have to pursue something else and see what else I'm interested in, what else, fulfills me, what else makes me feel passionate. So Tom's story was really moving for us. And we just started, we launched this bracelet line with proceeds go to Dance for Paralysis. That was with Electric Family. And then we started playing events. One year on Yasmine's birthday, she was like, I want to throw a party at a club on my birthday. And all proceeds go to Dance for Paralysis, which is amazing. That's so selfless in a sense. It's her birthday and she just wanted all the proceeds to go to someone else. So that's one foundation that we feel very aligned with. I actually want to work on this more because I feel like, kind of like what I was talking about earlier, I feel like I have so many ideas and desires and things I want to do and accomplish with our fan base because I see the power in our fan base. But on future tours, I would love to figure out a more streamlined way in every city to see what sort of community or aspect of the city needs help, and to see if we can get our fans together and bring together the force of the crew to help out, whether it's a day off or the morning of before a show. So I'm like, what's the point in having the influence? What's the point in having hundreds of people, the thousands of people who will show up at a show if it's just not for the common good of people? At the end of the day, it doesn't serve me if it's just entertainment. In the long run, I want to do something more with that. So once again, I'm trying not to get impatient because sometimes I'm like, why haven't I figured it out yet? It'll happen.
Yeah.
It'll happen.
What have you learned from this split up?
Grapefruit. And oranges. There's an orange that's split up right there. See that?
Oh.
Okay, so what I've learned, I think if anything, like my perspective on it now makes me feel bittersweet, sad, but also a sense of relief. Sad in the sense that like it makes me sad when you grow up with someone and you influence each other growing up, and they're a huge part of your upbringing and shaping your values, and knowing that after like 5, 6, 7 years that person is completely gone, removed from your life. It's as if they don't exist anymore. They're ghosts. And that thought is so like eerie to me, and it's sad and it's unsettling. And I don't want to experience that with more people in my life, but I also have to practice detachment so that I'm not heartbroken.
Yeah.
So I'm at this point in my life where I'm trying to practice this balance between detachment, but also staying like truly, truly passionate about someone or something. And that also relates to our careers. Like sometimes when we put out songs, like there was a time when we'd be like spend an hour and just like comments, read the comments, how's it doing? How many retweets, how many plays, who's talking about it? And now it's like Yasmine and I will be in the studio or on a flight and we're just like, it's just another day.
Yeah.
You can't get attached, and sometimes the best results happen when you're not hung up on the outcome of something. So yeah, I think the split up kind of taught me this, to negotiate this balance between detachment and feeling love and wanting to hang on and commitment.
How do you think your music has changed since the early songs you put out?
I would say I feel like it's more personal. There's more color to it. There's more culture to it. It's more multi-dimensional to me. It's more, to me, as far as like songwriting goes, I think it's Yasmine and I have become better at crafting our songwriting and melodies. And I feel like there have been releases where I'm like, I wouldn't really like share this with a friend, or I wouldn't show this to my mom or dad. And I feel like I feel an incredible sense of like ownership and pride over what we're creating now. And I think it's part of like the nature of an artist to like hate what you're doing sometimes, or never be satisfied, or to be like, I loved it in the moment, but it's so stupid now. And I think that's like a huge part of creating comes from insecurity or filling a void within. So it does feel good to finally have this moment where I'm like, I feel like we're doing something that we were always meant to be doing as Krewella, and it took us almost a decade to get to this point. So I feel like we're tapping into something that kind of already existed in our core, but now we're kind of unearthing it now.
What themes do you have coming up in the songs, or like messages that you want to bring?
I'd say empowerment, strength, but also vulnerability. I think that's something as individuals, Yasmine and I kind of agree on.
What was your decision to work with more and more like a Asian or Indian or Pakistani artists?
I think in the current day and age, when we're seeing this push and pull of like, it almost seems like half of the country wants to maintain, when they say American values, is like white male, like what they think the culture of white males are in middle America. And then the other half is, in a sense, that's nationalistic behavior. And then the other half of the country really, really wants to represent where they're coming from. They understand that America and the United States is based on immigrants. It was founded by immigrants, and we can't lose sight of that. So I think we live in a time more than ever where Yasmine and I really feel like we need to represent where we come from and not lose sight of that, and we want to empower other people too, or just anyone. I think it's important to empower people to represent their cultural background and their heritage, because that's what makes this country, that's what makes this world so beautiful. And it makes me sad thinking that there are some people who are trying to suppress people or wash away their culture, when there's so much beauty in ancient culture and values, and even with music and song and dance. And that's something that Yasmine and I really, really want to, we want people to feel that ownership of where they're from.
How do you think you've grown as a person since when you were younger?
Less self-loathing. Actually, like, I have to say, I feel like I've made a lot of progress, and I still have a lot of work to do, but I feel like I've been like vain for a lot of my young life, and my vanity prevented me from being present, because there were so many times I was thinking what people thought of me, or what people thought of my personality not being interesting enough, or like even just like down to like what I look like, and that me feeling like I'm having an off day with my looks is like preventing me from feeling like confident and like holding myself strong and standing up for myself. And now I feel like I care way less about that shit. And I'm like, if I have a day where I'm like, there's nothing there, empty, no creativity, I'm like, don't beat myself up over it. It happens. Like, moods fluctuate, emotions fluctuate. We have our on and off days. So just creating less expectations for myself.
Yeah. What does success look like to you?
Ooh, I love talking about the S word. Success looks like being present, looking more inward, and understanding myself more, and having a full, clear grasp on what my purpose is in life.
Last question. What do you want to be remembered for?
I feel like really egotistical answering that question. What do I want to be remembered for? someone who could connect with people.
Mm-hmm.
Someone who could connect. I'm saying that in such an insecure way right now. Hold on. Yeah, and whether that's masses or community or a few close people in my life. Or my dog. I'm happy if it's my dog.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much.
Thank
it's
you.
Been amazing.
Thank you.